Hello and welcome to Sovereign Lovestream.
Hi, everyone. Happy Sovereign Sunday. Welcome. Thank you for being here with us. It's a beautiful, magical, wonderful Sunday.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate it. And today we really just want to talk about the magic of everyday life. We really have, after a lot of this work that some of you have been through with us and heard about, we really just have gotten to a place where it's so much easier to appreciate the beauty and the magic in just everyday moments. And that's what we want to talk about. We don't really have like an agenda or a
major topic of
it's just more about like living in the moment and appreciating every day, stopping and smelling the flowers. And it's something that we've been doing it for a little while, but we feel like this past week it has really been like
I think
magic every single day. It's crazy.
I think like the past 2 weeks after we went off to Light and Liberty Festival and we came back with this feeling of community, of healing, of excitement, of joy for life. And then, like you said, every moment, every day, we've experienced magic. And I don't think that it's so much that our circumstances have changed because we live in the same city. The world is still happening around us, but we are definitely more in the present and able to enjoy each moment. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is being in the present. We're often thinking about what's going on out there, sometimes things that have nothing to do with us. We're worried about. And that's not to say that we don't care about what happens to people out there. But, it's the whole put on the mask for yourself first before you put it on to somebody else. We have to be the oxygen mask.
Not to put on just any mask.
Your oxygen mask before helping someone else put on theirs. Just because you can't give from an empty cup. And we have to be in a place where we are, energized, where we're happy, where we're joyful, in order to be able to share that with others as well. And again, that's not to say that when we're tired, we can't be helpful to other people, but there's a lot more to give when you're in that place.
And you know what? It's not even about always giving. Sometimes it's just about recharging yourself and enjoying your life, because it's your life and you should enjoy it. And why shouldn't you? There's kind of these, in our society, there's these memes, right? Like, you have to work hard. Capitalism kind of gives us that, or consumerism. You got to work hard to buy things to prove that you're a success and a productive member of society. There's religious concepts of you have to earn, your salvation. You have to work hard to become an enlightened being. And you do. And not to say that you're not working hard, but if you're not enjoying it along the way, for us, the work has gotten to the point where, it's hard, but it's also beautiful. And we can appreciate every moment, or we're appreciating a lot more moments anyway. I'm not going to say every moment like I'm the Buddha or the Christ, where, I'm totally present in every single moment. I'm not trying to give that impression at all. I still struggle. I struggle a lot. But it's a lot easier to appreciate moments. And so yesterday we were invited to go with some friends hiking, and we're not hikers. We're not very athletic at all. But you know what? I didn't hesitate. I was like, let's go. And so it was a chance to go up into the mountains and be in nature. And, it was not an easy hike. It was very rocky. It was like bouldering. My friend said, kind of hopping from boulder to boulder at certain points. And so it was kind of strenuous, but it was so relaxing and beautiful to be out there. And I really appreciated it. And it led to so many beautiful conversations about beautiful things. We weren't talking about Corona and, well, we did a little bit, but we weren't like fretting about Corona or the New World Order or, any of these other things that like Trump and fascism and all this stuff going on, we like stepped out of that for most of the day and we're just able to really enjoy and be in that moment. We had one moment where we were on the trail and 2 deer crossed our path. It was like amazing. It was magical.
Yeah.
There was another point when we got to the summit of the mountain. There were all these condors flying around in circles. And it really was just beautiful.
Yeah. And I think, we are city people. We live in New York City. Yeah. As much as we live very close to the park, and our neighborhood it has tons of trees and plants, and it's a really beautiful place, but it's not the same as being out in the mountains, being completely surrounded by nature. There were a lot of people there, and it was actually really nice to see how many people were out there enjoying nature, enjoying this beautiful fall day, just, having fun. And
yeah.
I think, especially for city people who don't get that opportunity as often, we kind of get caught up in seeing the world through Facebook, through social media, through the news, through the TV, and we're not really enjoying or taking the moment to enjoy our lives. And it's so, so important. Honestly, for me, being out in nature, being disconnected from all of those things, just kind of makes me feel closer to spirit, to God, to whatever you want to call it. This higher power, this greater sense of connection to the people around me. I found myself thinking about, like, it was really like a meditation as I was walking up and down the mountain. It felt like a meditation. I had lots of things come into my awareness. I had lots of understandings kind of come through at different points, and it's beautiful. And I think once we shut down all of that stimulation from our everyday lives, we get to experience that more often. And Danny has talked in the past about the whole concept of be here now, right? And how it's just deep on so many levels, because you think about, like, Danny said, well, where else am I going to be? Like, what does that even mean? But it's just being in the present and enjoying it and not thinking about it in relation to everything else. Because sometimes we tend to do that. Is this moment good in comparison to everything else? Or is this moment bad in comparison to everything else? If we just take the moment for what it is, there's no need to judge it at that point. It simply is. It's just a moment. It's just an experience. And it's taken me a really long time to understand that. Also, I've been one to judge, like, was this a good day or was this a bad day? And I think when we waste time doing that, we're letting that moment just slip by.
Yeah, for me, this is especially like a tough thing, because my mind is constantly going, and so a lot of times when I'm doing things, I'm thinking about something completely different. I'm having an argument with somebody either on Facebook, trying to come up with better arguments to convince them of my philosophical point of view, or I'm rehashing an argument I had with a person in real life, or I'm thinking about, I don't like this, I wish I had a nicer car, I want to live in the country, I don't want to be in the city anymore. So if you're in the past or the present, you can't be in the now. And so then
the future.
Past or the future, you can't be in the present, right? So that's really what being here now is about. It's about kind of, instead of worrying about the future and being upset about things that happened, just kind of like, what's happening right in this moment? I'm painting or I'm driving, and I try to take those opportunities to be like, oh, I'm driving, and I appreciate the fact that this car, as old as it is, it's like reliable. And I've talked about this before in like manifestation. But that's like an example, right? So if we were hiking up the mountain and thinking about, oh my God, RBG just died, and what's this mean now? And who's Trump gonna appoint? Or any of those things, or what mandatory vaccinations, is that coming down the pipeline? Like, worrying about all this stuff, all the insanity going around us. And you know what? We have so much peace.
Yeah.
We have so much peace. It's like, I'm just kind of realizing this now. We had a beautiful, amazing, peaceful day yesterday. And all this insanity going on around us had no effect on that.
Yeah.
We were able to enjoy the day despite. I saw a video this morning of this woman. She was recording herself while she was driving, screaming at the top of her lungs about Justice Ginsburg dying. She was like, couldn't you wait till 2021? Why did you have to die now? And she's like screaming at the top of her lungs about how fucked we are that RGB died. And I'm like, wow, that is a person that lives in her peace is dependent on the situations around her, that she is so upset. I mean, we can talk about like, yeah, I'm not saying government has no effect on our lives, but unless she's like, and the general like point of view, right, of liberals is that if RGB dies, they're going to repeal Roe versus Wade, which I mean, I think that that's ridiculous because even the conservative justices at this point, like Roberts, are protecting Roe v. Wade. They're voting for it. You know, they're voting against repealing. So I don't know what liberals are so worried about. But and RGB was not all that much of a progressive herself. She voted against many progressive issues and she supported Brett Kavanaugh. So I don't know. But that's a person that has created a life where her happiness is based on her surroundings. And so it doesn't matter which side you were on, if you're a Trump supporter or a conservative or a liberal, whatever it is, if your peace is dependent on what's going around you, you're never going to have peace. So I feel like we're at this point now where I've stepped away from political activism and just really gotten to the point where my peace comes first. My queen's peace comes second.
Yeah. And
right.
You know,
and then our kids, and then our family, and then our community, and then the world. That's the way it's got to be.
That's where it all comes from. You know,
if we're not peaceful, how could we expect to be in a peaceful world? Right.
Yeah.
We have to be the change.
Yes. And I think a lot of us expect the outside world to change first in order for us to finally be happy. As long as this thing changes, as long as this thing gets better, then I'll be happy. But we're going to get stuck waiting for somebody else to make us happy. And that's never going to happen. And I mean, it took me years to figure that out also.
And that's on every level.
Yeah.
Right. We talk about relationships a lot. That's basically the gist of this podcast is about relationships. So that applies to personal relationships. If I'm relying on Vanessa to make me happy, I'm going to be, at times I'm going to be miserable. Now it's easier. But if I'm expecting the president to make me happy, are you expecting the president to make you happy? What? If you are, you need to do some soul searching, my friend. I love you, but no, I'm sorry. I don't care who's president.
And I think, you know, even in our relationship, it took that. A lot of people tend to have a codependent relationship.
Oh yeah,
it's very easy to fall into a codependent relationship.
We had a codependent relationship for many years,
and it took recognizing that for changes to happen in our relationship. Mm-hmm. There was a long period where I was depending on Danny to be a certain way in order for me to be happy. And that put a lot of pressure on him, and it led to a lot of disappointment in me because he wasn't ready for that. It wasn't that time yet. And I had to pull away all of that codependency and really come to a place of non-attachment with the relationship and start working on healing myself, on doing things for myself. And I remember having this conversation with Danny a few years ago and saying, you know, I'm releasing attachment to you. And at that moment, he was like, what is that? Like, what are you saying? Are you going to leave me? What does this mean? Is it the end of our relationship? It really wasn't about, okay, I'm done with the relationship. It was, I no longer need you to make me happy. Mm-hmm. I can be happy on my own. I can do that on my own. And if I do that and still choose to be with you, then that's a gift. You know, I'm not asking.
It's a choice rather than an addiction or dependency.
And that was a huge shift in our relationship. That changed things for me so much. And even now, I'm able to treat my health in a way where I'm coming from a different place, where I'm able to be happy the way things are. I'm able to find joy in the way things are. And now I can deal with my health issues from a better place. Not as once I heal these health issues, I'll be happy. It's more like I'm happy now. And so I have the patience and the calm to deal with my health issues. I have the energy to be able to focus on which areas of my life need to improve so that my health improves as well. And it just, when you tackle things from that point of view, the changes that you make then for your health are changes that you're happy to make. It's not like, oh, now I have to restrict myself. I have to, stop I can't enjoy eating the foods that I like. It's different. Now I'm in a place where it's like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do this for my body. I'm so happy with the way my life is right now that I want to give my body the things that are nourishing it, the things that are going to keep it even happier, that are going to make me even happier. And it's a very different perspective where it's not coming from a place of me having to limit myself.
You have to do this.
Yeah, now these are choices, and it's very liberating to do that. And it's very liberating to have a relationship where you're genuinely happy. You're two happy people coming together to share that happiness, as opposed to, I need you to make me happy and you need me to make you happy.
So you better be the way I want you to be so that you can make me happy. Yeah.
And so that way, even when we do things that we don't necessarily agree with, it's not the end of the world anymore. It's just like, okay, that's what you want to do. That's cool. And I can give you my perspective. I can share with you my opinion on things, but it doesn't mean that you have to change in order for me to be happy. And I think that just relieves so much pressure.
Thank you, Christine. We would love to hear more comments. So if you're watching, please leave us a comment about how you enjoy the magic in everyday moments. We would love to hear and share those comments. So thank you, Christine. We appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it was a long, hard road, but we've gotten to the point now where it's a lot easier, and we're doing the work and we're doing it together, and there's no more conflict. Not to say there's no more conflict. There's no more arguing.
Yes.
Or very little arguing, I should say.
Very little arguing.
We can work through those conflicts. And we've said these things before, but I mean, I just feel like it really just is so, I don't know. It's so beautiful that you just want to share it with other people, because when you realize that you can enjoy life this way, despite the nonsense happening around you, you can, and like, you want everybody else to be able to enjoy life this way too.
Yeah.
I guess this is where the root of religious zealotry comes from, right? Like, you become a zealot because it's like, I found the way. But it's not so much like the way, like, oh, you have to be this religion or that religion, but just it's more about making yourself happy without infringing on other people, right? Obviously, we're not suggesting that you should do whatever you want and screw everybody else. It's about doing what makes you happy without infringing on other people, right? Because if I were to just do things that made me happy but made her miserable, like play PlayStation all day long, and she can't be in her own bedroom because she doesn't want to see, right? Like, you have to be considerate too, but it's really more about not letting other people's expectations of you rule how you view yourself, so that you can then live your best life. And that's what Vanessa was doing, right? So at some point she realized she was codependent, and she was like, we had the discussion about non-attachment, and it petrified me, because the voices in my head were like, oh man, she's talking about non-attachment. This is like a pre-breakup. This is like, she's prepping the waters here so that, because you don't make her happy, you're not worthy of her, all these things, right? That our egos start to tell ourselves, because where was the end game? Do they want me to break up with you first? Or do they want me to convince you, no, non-attachment's a bad thing, so that I could keep you on the hook? Whatever it is, like, I lost my train of thought. I was saying that so how I dealt with you going into a place of being not codependent.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Sorry. So my ego was petrified, because it thought, I'm going to lose her now. She's going to be non-attached. She loves me, but also realizes that I'm this flawed person and I don't make her happy, or that I can't make her happy. And I'm like, oh my God, the jig is up. So I guess that's it. But the truth is that as I saw her living in her own, and really it's sovereignty, because if you're dependent on someone else, you're not sovereign. You're not exercising your sovereignty. She started to exercise her sovereignty, and that really inspired me. And it took me a while because I'm so stubborn to really get it. And meanwhile, these are concepts that I was preaching. I'm preaching sovereignty, anarchy, agorism, being self-sufficient and self-sustaining, but I wasn't applying it to myself in an emotional and a spiritual way. And that's really where the shift happened.
Yeah, I think
Vanessa taught me that.
I think that's what happens, that a lot of us, especially those of us who are activists, we want to, reach out and take our sovereignty back from the government, from the powers that be, but we're not looking at the areas in which we're trapped emotionally and spiritually. Thank you, Sebastian. And so that's really the core of it. If you haven't dealt with your emotional issues, if you haven't dealt with your spiritual issues or the traumas that you're carrying, it doesn't matter what anybody else outside does. It doesn't matter if we finally, like, the government is gone and it's full anarchy. For those of us who are looking for an anarchist society, you're not going to be happy if you haven't dealt with the things that are really tying you down.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, right? We get distracted by these outside issues and we start to believe that it's the government that's keeping us unhappy. It's society out there that's keeping us unhappy.
It's my partner.
I mean, for many, many years, I was convinced once my health issues get fixed, I'll be happy. Once my relationship issues get fixed, I'll be happy. Once Danny changes, I'll be good to go, but everything would be fine. Mm-hmm. And that was never going to happen. And I think to be able to come to my happiness on my own is much more powerful. It's something that can't be taken away from me anymore because it's something I've worked through, something that I've done for myself. It's not dependent on anybody else. It's not dependent on what somebody else is going to say to me or do to me. I know how to attain my own happiness. And I think if we were all able to do that, I mean, we'd all be completely sovereign individuals, regardless of what's happening in the outside world.
And we all have this ability because we are all sovereign beings. And it's just a matter of to what degree do we exercise that sovereignty. And, I still feel like I'm in kindergarten in terms of sovereignty, right? Like, I don't feel like I'm some kind of guru or I've made it or that I've achieved some insane level of enlightenment, right? Like, so this unilum, my tattoo, is supposed to be kind of a representation of the path to enlightenment. So you kind of start out going around in circles and then zigzag a little bit. And then up at the top where it's just the dot, that's enlightenment. So like, I'm like right there. Like I'm still going around in circles, So
I think we all are to a certain degree, but I think kind of the purpose of this episode was really to show that once you start doing some of the healing, right? I mean, I think that we probably still have a lot more healing to do.
Sure.
But once you start going through the big chunks, like the really difficult stuff, you realize that on the other side, there's so much more freedom. Mm-hmm. And so as you start getting a taste of that freedom, a taste of that sovereignty, of that joy and happiness and freedom and just love, it becomes like, oh yeah, healing is my cardio now, right? I'm going to just do it every single day. Just like I drink my coffee every morning, I'm going to do my healing work every day because guess what? It's so much better on the other side. There's so much more joy to be had. We've talked about some of the things that we've gone through, but we've explained that we've gone through a lot. Like we tell people we've gone through hell and back. We've gone to some really dark places together. But as we've done the healing work, more and more our days are full of joy. We're happy to be around each other. We are happy to if we have nothing to do for the day, it's not like, oh God, we're stuck at home all day with each other. We weren't miserable with each other during quarantine.
Not at all.
We had a great time. And I feel like we discovered new passions, new things that we wanted to do. I started, discovering my passion for art and kind of.
If you see this in the background here, she's been doing this wood burning. You kind of see she's wood burning mandalas, and they are beautiful. For me, it has been so beautiful to watch her express her creativity and get into this stuff. The watercolor painting she's been doing, the sacred geometry drawings, and now the wood burning. I mean, it's been beautiful to watch you and to watch you enjoying it and like being so into it. And like, I'm very proud of you, honey.
Thank you.
And not only that, like so kind of getting back to the everyday magic, right? So we just had a couple of experiences this week that I felt like I want to share because it's kind of like an example of the everyday magic. So we hung out with a friend that we haven't seen in a long time the other day. And, because of quarantine, we haven't seen in at least 6 months. But we hung out. And she was sharing some things with us about some problems she was having in her relationship, some challenges, I should say. And the three of us just sat there talking with such compassion about her partner, because we all love her partner and we all want to see him heal. And there was just such an overwhelming presence of God in that room that literally I was weeping like most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the kind of magic I'm talking about. Like, weeping with joy of feeling that compassion flowing through me. It was not only healing for me, but she reported it was healing for him, and he wasn't even there. But
I think these moments happen, and what Danny is saying about this overwhelming presence of God, that's it, right? That's really what it is. We talk about feeling God and knowing God. And if you're living every moment with love and compassion, if you're experiencing community with love and compassion, that is God. That is the message of God. And we get to experience that more and more on a daily basis because we've also removed all of the parts of ourselves, or we're working every day to remove the parts of ourselves that hold judgments, that are hard on ourselves, right? We've had to forgive in so many parts of ourselves that, it becomes easier to have that love and compassion for others as well. And
when you remove things like jealousy, anger, even sadness and depression can block you off from God. And it's not a matter of burying those things, because when you bury them, that still blocks you. Just because you don't think about it doesn't mean you're not blocked by it. It's just processing it and letting it go, not holding on to them.
And even yesterday, we were having this conversation with this group of friends that we went hiking with, and I only knew two of them, and the other two were friends of theirs. So, these are new people and we don't really hang out that often. So I don't know much about them, but we began talking. Everybody kind of became vulnerable at different points in the hike.
Sharing things.
And we were sharing.
It was beautiful.
We were talking because it was really interesting, because earlier in the day, I was watching an Instagram video of this woman who was offering I believe it's like it's a healing course that I just signed up for. It was funny because I found the course and I said, all right, I'm signing up, and I did it. And then I was like, maybe I should check out who's offering the course, because I just signed up for it. I was so excited by the description of the course that I signed up without checking to see who was offering it. But I was very pleasantly surprised. And this woman was talking about our disconnection from community, and how in Mexico we have what they're called plazas, where people come together, the community comes together, and how in the United States, one of her I believe she said her grandfather went off to a war, and when he came back, he tried to buy land, and they offered him this like long strip of land, but it was narrow. It was 50 feet wide. She was like 50 feet wide. Like, you can't have a community gathering on this like long, narrow strip of land. But she says it's a control mechanism, because we don't have community as much anymore. How often do you sit and gather with your friends in a quiet space to just speak openly, to have vulnerable conversations? Danny made the comment that now it's kind of the thing that if you go out with your friends, you go out to a club or a bar and the music is blasting and you're drinking and it's just loud and people are dancing and you can't really hear each other talk.
You really can't connect on an intimate level.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we've lost, because in generations past, this was something they did more often. Indigenous cultures still do it. They gather around the fire, or even in religious circles, they have, you have church. I mean, church has become, even now, it's kind of like you sit and listen to a sermon instead of being in a gathering, like a fellowship of people who can share things intimately with each other. There's small group churches, cell groups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That kind of have tried to bring some of that back.
So yesterday, here we are in nature, hiking, and everybody's sharing things, everybody's opening up, and it's what community is meant to be. And so I thought it was so beautiful to see that happen. And we've talked about this before, how that is the intention of this Lovestream, is for us to kind of open up the conversation. We love reading your comments. We love hearing the things that you guys are experiencing, the things that resonate with you, the things that maybe you disagree with and have a different opinion about, or a different way of working through it. It provides the opportunity for us to have a discussion about it. There are times where we're doing the Lovestream and people are having conversations within the comments, and it's beautiful. Like, it's creating community. We're creating opportunities for people to have conversations. When we came out on national TV talking about taking psychedelics as parents, it opened up conversations. There were people anywhere the articles were shared, anywhere the video was shared, people were having discussions about, I do, this has helped me this way, it's helped me that way. And it's such a beautiful thing to see. People are looking for community. That's the reason we are on Facebook or all these social media networks. Yeah. We're looking for community, but we get distracted by all of these outside things thrown at us, all of these, like the pandemic, the election, any wild news,
or like bragging about, like, whatever pictures you're, bragging about your new sneakers or your new car, all that kind of stuff. Like, that's not true. It's not true community building. I mean, there's nothing wrong with appreciating your new sneakers and wanting to show people. But if that's all it is to you, then, if you're just looking for likes, you're kind of missing the point of what social media should be. Well, maybe I shouldn't use the word should. But.
But I think that really what we're looking for is connection. And I think it's so beautiful when you start to have these moments of being vulnerable with other people. And that's really what it is. Anytime that we've felt we've had these magical moments or magical experiences, it's been because we chose to be vulnerable with others. Right? When we were at Light and Liberty Festival up in New Hampshire, everyone was just sharing and being so vulnerable
with people we didn't even know.
We had just met the majority of these people, and it was such a beautiful experience to talk about those things, to share what we've been through. And I felt like we all left there feeling like a family. Yeah. Like, all right, we'll see you guys next year.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so beautiful.
This is a great example, having a drum circle. I'm sure that there's a lot of sharing that happens aside from just the drumming. I've been to drum circles, and they are beautiful experiences. Not only do you get to enjoy good music with people, but you're laughing and you're sharing things, and you can make connections with people who are like-minded. So yeah, drum circle is a great way. Thank you.
Yeah, we were in Boston a few months ago, or was that a year ago? Oh my God, it's been a year. And we were able to attend a shamanic drum circle, and It was really beautiful. We ended up going to 2 of them, and some of the same people from the first group were there at the second week. And there was one guy who was celebrating years of sobriety.
Yeah.
And it was so beautiful. And, you know, to sit there in community and talk about these things and celebrate him, you know, we were all really excited for him and congratulating him. And he's a complete stranger.
Mm-hmm.
We had never met him before. But that's the thing, right? We go through life experiencing things, and we tend to have a very narcissistic view of the world. You had a recent experience this week at the bank where you were really frustrated.
Okay, so I don't like using banks. It bothers me. I don't like the financial system. I hate the fact that I need a bank account for certain things, like to pay certain bills. You have to have a bank account. It's irritating. So I don't keep money in the bank. I only keep enough in there to pay whatever I have to pay, but I don't save money in the bank. So I went to the bank to take money out, and I always have a bad experience at this bank. I don't know if it's just this bank, or we'll get to the punchline at the end. But so I go, I fill out my paperwork, and I'm waiting online. The teller is on the phone, and she just kind of waves me over. So I go. She doesn't greet me. She doesn't say anything. I slide my paper and ID under the glass, and she mumbled something like, "Oh, maybe I should get off the phone," and she hangs up. Now she doesn't say, "Oh, I'm sorry. How are you? You know, welcome to the bank, et cetera, et cetera." No customer service at all. So I'm like standing there, just trying to keep a pleasant demeanor. I'm like, let me not get like upset about this, but I am getting upset about this. I'm really riling myself up. But so she's like clicking and tapping. I'm telling you, it had to be a good 5 minutes. That's an eternity. When you're standing there, all she has to do is check the account, money's there, count it out. What's the problem? Still has not said a word to me. I was almost at the point where I was going to say, is there a problem? Like, seems like this is taking a little bit longer than it should. So finally she says, so were you closing the account? Now, I wasn't withdrawing all the money, so I don't understand what. I was like, no, I'm not closing the account. So she just counts it out, whatever. And so I realized, well, I didn't realize. Vanessa told me when I'm telling her the story, like I was really irritated. I'm like, why every single time I go into this bank, it's the same thing. Like they act like it's like an inconvenience to be serving me. I don't know. Maybe they just don't get a lot of people actually physically going into the bank anymore. And so they get irritated.
Maybe.
But the truth is that I went in there expecting to have a problem, and I got a problem, right? I manifested the experience because I went in there with a shitty attitude, right? Like, these people are going to give me a problem, like always.
He was telling me before we left that he had already played out the scenario in his head of the argument he was going to have at the bank.
I did, because I've had the same argument before. It's weird. It's like they want to discourage you from taking cash out of the bank.
Yeah.
I guess. And so they're not very cooperative about it. I don't know. But if I had gone on in there with, even though I was trying to maintain a face, right? Like I put on a smile, but probably it looked like a fake smile because I really was upset inside already, knowing I was going to have a problem, right? Because I can tell the future. So I manifested that experience for myself. So how many times do we do that? Where if I wasn't that way, if I was living in the moment and not expecting to have a problem and just went in there genuinely with a good attitude, and maybe she would have sensed it. She would have felt it. My pleasant demeanor that was sincere, and she would have responded a little bit differently. I don't know.
I think that's the thing. I think a lot of us tend to think that other people can't feel our energy, right? Like that they can't sense the truth. The truth is, we're humans. We're sensitive. We do feel each other's energy. When you have to deal with, exactly. Oh, thank you.
I don't even think we realize we're doing it, but I think Jilly's absolutely right. Like we're probably reading energy more than even anything else.
Exactly. And so even if you come in there with this fake smile, you can feel the energy of the other person. I worked in customer service for years. I worked answering phone calls. And I could tell when somebody was being fake, and I could tell when somebody was being sincere. And, it took a lot for me to do that job, because I felt like I was getting all these energies thrown at me. I didn't understand it at the time, but it was extremely exhausting for me to deal with people on a like back-to-back phone calls. So I was telling Danny, you don't know what she's going through. You don't know what she's experienced, what her home life is like. There were years where Danny and I were having fights. We would go out and get drunk, have a fight, scream at each other, tell each other we never wanted to see each other again. And then at 7:00 in the morning, I was on the train on my way to work. And then I would sit there answering phone calls all day about people yelling at me over, their bills or whatever the issue was. And in my mind, I'm like, dude, I'm having an emotional breakdown over here, and you're screaming at me over nothing. And that's all. I have tons of friends.
RGB is dead. There's a $5 charge on my account.
And I have so many friends that, I have so many friends from the customer service world, and I know they've gone through, horrible experiences. I was working at Verizon as a customer service representative while I was having a miscarriage. I got, my doctor called me while I was there getting my, to give me the results of my blood tests and confirming that I was in fact having a miscarriage. And I went back to the phones to continue taking calls for customers. So you never know what anybody is experiencing. You never know what they're going through. And sometimes we come in with this expectation that they're going to be nasty, because it's always forever when you call customer service. They never know what they never know what to tell me. They always give me some bullshit answer. So you already call in with the aggravation of like, all right, so what are you going to tell me now? And we hear that, I was there. I would hear the tone in the customer's voice, and I'm like, I'm trying to help you, and you're being nasty to me for no reason. And I was one of the people that I felt I always wanted to go above and beyond for the customer. So it was always painful and frustrating to hear people talk to me with that tone, like, all right, yeah, well, I could hear them rolling their eyes at me over the phone.
And she's really good at sensing that, because she's an expert at eye rolls.
Exactly. And so it's a lot. Like you were saying, it's not being present. It's not being in the moment, not being empathetic with, everybody's going through stuff. I mean, we're still dealing with the effects of the pandemic. People are stressed. Children are going back to school virtually. That's a whole shit show in and of itself. It's stressful for parents. It's stressful for the kids. Then the kids are stressed out and aggravated. They aggravate and annoy the parents. And then the parents are dealing with bills and trying to figure out how they're going to make work now that they have their kids at home virtually learning. And it's this chaos everywhere. Everybody's dealing with so much stress. And so if the least we could do is come in there and try to not project our own stress onto somebody else, that makes a huge difference.
You know what? You're right. I could have just went into the bank, and seeing her with her attitude, I could have went above and beyond to just like try and make her day a little bit better, right? I could have been extra nice and like maybe complimented her earrings or something, just to like break that energy and shift it, so that then she'd be like, oh, thank you. And then maybe her demeanor would change.
Do you know that my best friend, Carla, I love to describe Carla, because I feel like when I watch Carla go throughout the world, when I get to observe her, to me, it looks like the world is black and white, and then along comes Carla sprinkling color everywhere. We were helping her renovate her apartment last year, and we made dozens of trips to Home Depot. Home Depot was like our hangout place by the end of that renovation. And anytime that we went in for a return, for a purchase, for whatever, Carla would be like, oh my God, I love your nails. Oh my God, I love your ring. Oh my God, I love this. And it was genuine. It was not like
really
this
is.
thing that she just says to people. I know, because on the day that she talked about the ring, I wasn't there. She came back to the house where I was painting, and she was like, oh my God, the girl at Home Depot had the most beautiful ring. And I was like, and I know she told her she had the most beautiful ring, because that's what Carla does. She tells everybody, she speaks from her heart. She compliments people. She makes jokes with them. She just like pours love into everything. And so I've seen her walk up to people in, people in Home Depot or any other store or restaurant that we went into, and I could see the demeanor of the person. And then Carla just throws out this tiny compliment that to Carla is just like, it's an observation, and boom, I'm throwing it out there. And the person's demeanor changes, like, oh, thank you. All of a sudden, there's a difference in the energy, right? There's this, a wall comes down when somebody compliments you, when somebody says something nice about what you're wearing, about something you said, about your accent, about anything. It just kind of lets you feel comfortable. You're in this space of love, right? You're in this space of appreciation.
Yeah. I really experienced this yesterday on the hike. And I even said it at the moment. I was like, oh my God, I'm like Carla right now. So we're hiking, and, we're navigating up, and people are also navigating down. So we're kind of waiting for each other. And, there's a little bit of etiquette involved because it's a narrow, rocky path. And I just was in such appreciation of what was happening the day, the beauty of what a beautiful day it was, and being out in nature, that I found myself like appreciating watching people climb down the rocks, like making deliberate steps, and like feeling like I want to compliment them. Oh, that was beautiful, the way you just took that step, right? Something so small, and I thought to myself, this isn't me. Like, what's happening right now? And I even said, I was like, oh my God, I feel like Carla right now. I like want to tell that lady how beautiful that step she just took was.
But we hold back, right? We tend to hold back from saying those things because we feel silly saying it. I mean, we were walking down the street in our neighborhood one of the first times Carla came to stay with us, and there was a guy on the street, and I'm not sure if he was homeless or what. There was just this guy on the street, and she was like, oh my God, you have such a beautiful smile. And then off she goes, spreading more cheer. And the guy just kind of looked at her super surprised, and he just like kind of smiled at her. He was like, thank you, have a blessed day. And it was just like this beautiful interaction. And I'm like, God, it's so, if more of us were this way, we would be navigating this world with so much more peace and love and empathy. And
that's really what it is. That's what I realized, right? Like I'm sitting here saying, oh my God, I'm acting like Carla right now. But what it was that I was just in that spirit of joy and appreciation and gratitude for what I was experiencing, that it was just love. Love was flowing through me. And so I was able to appreciate and compliment somebody on something very small. And that's it.
Yeah.
That's how we change the world. It's crazy.
Well, yeah, when you think
so
about
simple.
It's it becomes a cycle, right? If you went into the bank and this lady had this angry demeanor, she was in a bad mood, she wasn't in the mood to give you your money, she was, I don't know, going through whatever she was going through, you come out of there with this experience and you're like, why is she always like that? Why is my experience in the bank always this horrible? Now, lucky for you, I was driving, but you could have gotten in the car and then complained about all the traffic. You would have yelled at somebody who's passing by in the other direction. Sure. Then that guy's in the car and he's like, why are just random people screaming at me for no reason? There's traffic. What do you want me to do? Then he gets to his job and he gets impatient with someone else, and it just flows and flows and flows and flows and flows.
Yeah.
And we have the opportunity to change that at any given moment by shifting the energy, right? By giving someone a compliment, being loving to somebody. And that can be the thing that we send out into the world. That can be the cycle that continues, and maybe it'll stop. Maybe that person won't continue it, but maybe they will, maybe they will take that and be like, oh my God, that was really nice. I had this customer that was like complimenting me on my nails today. Like that was pretty cool. I feel kind of nice about myself. Right. And then you go back to the break room and you're sitting with somebody else and you're like, you know what? I had this really nice customer, because that stuff sticks out. I know that. I know that because when I had customers that were really loving and kind and blessing me over the phone, I took that with me, where I was like, wow, that was a really nice call. That customer was so sweet to me. I wish all the customers were like this. And then you tell your coworker and your coworker's like, really? Wow, that's awesome. Like it just changes your demeanor. It can change somebody's entire day, and it costs absolutely nothing. And that's how you create magic in the world. Yeah. That's how you experience magic on a daily basis. I mean, Carla lives in Smurfville, like she's just finding the beauty in everyday things. and it's contagious. Anytime I spend time with Carla, I feel this like surge of energy and just happiness and joy and appreciation for life. And now that we've been cultivating that, I feel like we get to experience that a lot more. Yeah. And, yesterday you said something that was really interesting. You were talking to one of our friends and you said something about like how you used to be looking for these big revelations, right? You would one day discover this huge revelation that would change everything, and that the reality is that it's these tiny things, right? These tiny shifts in our perspective, these tiny ways of looking at things that really shift everything on a massive scale, right? Yeah. Oh, we're sending you so much love.
Yes, that's beautiful. Yeah, I think it's a lot of times it is in the small moments. Like if we're always looking for the big thing, you miss all the little ones, and you can have those little ones every moment. Yeah. Those little just moments of love, moments of that magic that comes when you allow love to flow through you, that we can experience in every single moment, rather than, just waiting for, it's I gotta work all week. This week's gonna suck, but then I'll get something on the weekend, right? Like I'll be able to do something I enjoy on the weekend, waiting for the weekend to enjoy yourself. And then by the time the weekend comes, you're too exhausted.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you can live in love every day, then you're energized all the time.
And it's really interesting because especially as parents, we see this too, how sometimes we think we have to create these big moments for our kids, right? We have to take them on these huge adventures, on these vacations, buy them the most expensive toys so that they'll feel happy. And the truth is, some of my favorite memories growing up are little moments. They're just these funny little moments that happen, these cute little jokes, or these, somebody said this funny thing and it just stuck with me. And those are the things I really remember. I mean, yeah, my parents took us on vacations and they got us these great presents and stuff, but it was always just the simple moments, right? I know the fact that there was a time where my dad lost his job, and he was, my mom was the one working, and my dad would make us breakfast. My dad's a chef. And so he made us these like very fancy breakfasts any day of the week. On school days, it was like, come on, you're going to sit down and have this, like, I don't know. He was just always making creative breakfasts. And those are things that stuck out. The fact that my dad was doing something like that, right? Just having breakfast together. And those are the moments that we cherish.
What's funny is that I remember my dad making French toast. I mean, it was on the weekend mornings, but that's something that I still remember. And I make French toast the way my dad used to make French toast. That's where I got that. She thinks it's weird that I put half and half in the eggs when I'm making the batter for the French toast. But that's where I learned that.
Yeah. Well, there you go. See, I didn't know that. But yeah, it's these little moments that we remember. And I think sometimes we try so hard to create the big things, and it's just the tiny things. And once you start appreciating those tiny things is when everything becomes magical. Life becomes magical. Taking a hike with friends is magical. Mm-hmm. And, or having tacos with friends is magical. Everything is magical at this point once you start paying attention to it.
Yeah. So we're running out of time here, but I want to mention before we go that today is National Psychedelic Mushrooms Day. September 20th is a day for us to kind of appreciate, and we definitely appreciate the magic of magic mushrooms. And we just want to thank plant medicine in general, but especially mushrooms for the way they have helped us. They have been a tool and a permission slip for us to be able to experience healing. And, our friend yesterday, we were talking about psychedelics, and he was like, but do you need psychedelics? And no, I don't think you need psychedelics. I don't think necessarily psychedelics are right for everybody, but I appreciate psychedelics for the role that it played in my life and the tool that it was for me to be able to turn down the volume on my ego so that I could listen to God, ultimately, is what I experienced on mushrooms. And so I will be forever grateful. And now I really don't need it anymore. Like we very rarely use psychedelics now, but there was a time when we needed to use it. And I think, so I do think, you never want to become dependent on anything outside of yourself to connect to God. But in those moments, there's no shame. There's nothing wrong with needing to use a tool or have a permission slip. Like I like to say, it's like Dumbo's magic feather, right? Dumbo could fly without the feather, but he didn't have the confidence to fly yet. So he had that feather, and as long as he was holding that feather, he knew he could fly until he let go of the feather and realized, oh, I don't need it anymore. I can fly without it. And I think for a lot of people, they find that magic mushrooms can be like that. It's a way to experience God when you're in a place that it's very difficult to. And then eventually you learn you don't need it anymore, and you can connect with God without it. And that's really what's happening.
Yeah.
We're connecting with God every day in these tiny little moments.
It's funny because Carla was saying earlier, I feel like every day I'm on mushrooms. She's like, she hasn't taken mushrooms in probably like a year or more. But she said, every day feels like a mushroom ceremony now.
Yeah. And thank you, Veronica. We appreciate that. Yeah, we're not heroes. We're just doing what we feel we need to do for ourselves, but we appreciate the sentiment.
And I agree. I think I have so much love and gratitude for the sacred mushrooms, for the knowledge that we've been able to come to with the help of sacred mushrooms. And I'm in great appreciation for the indigenous cultures that have for so many years sat with mushrooms and used it as a tool and mechanism for healing, and that we kept
those traditions alive.
Yeah, and that we're able to tap into some of that now. That some of us, for me, I'm reconnecting to my indigenous roots, and I'm so grateful for all of the work that has gotten us to this point, for all of the sacrifice. And so yeah, I have so much love and appreciation for our psychedelic mushrooms. Thank you all so much for joining us this week. As always, it was a pleasure. Thank you for your comments. Leave us suggestions for topics you'd like for us to cover. Danny's going to talk to you about our social media accounts.
We're on all the major social media accounts, but like I tell you every week, we're trying to get off of the big censorship platforms, because that's really what they are. And we love to promote minds.com and Float app. These are two privacy-centric. They don't sell your data, and they're also anti-censorship, or I should say they're pro-free speech. They don't censor your posts the way Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook do, and it's just getting worse. Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube are openly saying they're going to, just censor anything that is not officially endorsed by government, right? So anything about vaccine health or holistic medicine or things like that, they've been censoring. So if you want censorship-free platforms, check out Float app and minds.com. And they actually have pretty good functionality. Like, they function a lot like Facebook, so you don't really have to give up. I know there have been apps in the past that haven't been that great, and they're harder to use. But the functionality is really very similar to Facebook. So, I mean, you don't really have to give up any of that to have privacy.
And also go out in the world today. Go enjoy nature. Hug a tree. Love your friends, your family. Sprinkle some love out there. Go do some Carla magic.
Have a happy Sovereign Sunday. See you next week.
Bye.